don't know nobody on this road that can save your soul. Almost lost control now. Tell me what you need in a friend and now. Pray that we endure to the end again. I'm just saying that I'm here for you. When the world turn against you, I'ma be with you. Got my soul in my hand, you can count on me. I won't run and hide, fight mightily.
Waiting on your house shot. See the Jacob, I'm the apple of my father's eye. I learned the truth for who I was, and it made me cry. If I don't keep the laws of Yah, then I'm gonna die. Living curses, but I'm edifying in my verses. Prepare the hearses for the heathens who'll be steady.
Khan. Call out Yahweh Shema Mashek Womalak Yahweh Shai. Another Manna Mondays, y'all. We here. We made it through the week. Last week, all praise to the Most High. Right to the 12 tribes scattered abroad. Greetings to the hopeful elect, enduring day in and day out in His truth, making a body a living sacrifice, calling and screaming out and crying out, Abanawa Yahweh. Man, another Manna Monday as we make it into the 6th month. The 6th month, you know, this year is going by very, very fast. And you must ask yourself, are you refreshing the saints? You know, pride is getting a lot of people sifted out of this truth. It's definitely sifting season, and you got to ask yourself, are you prideful? Are you being used on the right-hand side to do His will, His perfect will? Or are you being used on the left-hand side? And those are things that questions you got to ask yourself. You know, let every man be convinced in his own mind, right? I want to kick it off with this Sirach 10 and 12 through 13. The beginning of pride is when one departed from God, which sounds crazy when you think about it, because how can you depart from God? Like, let's talk about that. You know what I mean? What ways in your mind have you beguiled and tricked yourself to even think that it is possible to depart from the Most High God? What do you think about that? Now, I know from our vantage point, one may think and conceive like, hey, look, I'm doing my own thing now. I turn my back on the Most High God. But ultimately, you didn't depart from God in the sense that you're doing your own thing. You were given over to the spirit of wickedness. And we got to internalize that. We got to really conceive how deep pride is and how deep of a deception it is when you have a spirit of pride on you to think that you can do your own thing, to think that you have the power to neglect the Most High God, Yahweh Shem Yahushua, right? And his heart is turned away from his maker. Now, what does that mean? We know the heart is the mind. So in your mind, you think that you have the power to do away with the Most High God, you know? Well, pride is the beginning of sin. And he that hath it poured out abomination. And you got to think abominable goes into anything that's contrary to the laws from the Most High God. Lakia, I rebuke you, tired spirit, you know. And therefore the Lord brought upon them strange calamities and overthrew them utterly. And you don't want to get overthrown by the Most High God, right? In any type of way, right? Because, one second, I'm going to get this quick precept real quick. Because as we read, I'm going to get in the book of Hebrews 10 and 31, right? It is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God. Now, what does this mean? Is this saying that you don't want to be in the comfort of God's hands? No, this is talking about God's wrath and his mercy. I mean, it's like his wrath and his punishment. And a part of this wrath and his punishment goes into how are you treating your brothers and sisters? Are you in the nation building the nation up? Are you in the nation tearing the nation down? Are you building your household up, tearing your household down? For my brothers and sisters who are in the body, who are in the camp, are you edifying and building up the body in the ministry? Or are you tearing it down? Right? Are you deeming it holy and then making inquiry and saying, you know what? Well, I started off in this truth, and it was I had a fun run, but now it's back to the world, right? Are you beguiling your mind by thinking that you can straddle the fence? You want to watch that, man. Even as we go into dark places, as we commanded to be a light in dark places, you want to still separate yourself. You don't want to be caught up in the ways of the world, because the Most High will give you over to that spirit, those spirits that are around you, right? When you got to think of, let's get this quick parable real quick. 1 second. Because, 1 second, let me get this in Matthew right quick. Because once I'm going to get it in. Bam. Let me get it in. Salakia, bear with me. Pull up this Matthew 12 and 44, but I want it in KJV. Because, matter of fact, I'm going to get it in Luke 11 and 25. So the book of Luke, chapter 11 and 25, and I'm going to read up. It says, starting with verse 22. But when a stronger than he come upon him and overcame him, he taketh from him all his armor, wherein he trusted, and divideth his spoil. He that is not with me is against me, and he that gathereth not with me scattereth. So are you refreshing the saints? Are you gathering the saints in edification and fasting and praying and enduring and sacrifice, right? Do you have the mind frame to gather the sheep, or do you have the mind frame to scatter the sheep? Because if you're scattering the sheep, you're not with the Most High. You're not a friend of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua. And there's many ways that you can scatter the sheep. It could be through false doctrine. It can literally be through your example, through your walk. The way that you're walking, an example that you're setting, could be misleading and influencing brothers and sisters to go and be used on the left-hand side. Because see, the Most High God gives different measures of influence to different brothers and sisters. And you may be in a position of leadership where you can influence people, and the Most High God has given you that, for lack of better words, that authority, right? Or that recognition. Often influence goes directly with recognition. So you could be recognized in a leadership position in such a way that you're now influencing, brothers and sisters to go off, right? That is a part of scattering the sheep. So you got to be intentional. We have to be intentional, and we have to have the understanding that every single thing that we do is under a microscope. Right now, man may not watch and be ever able to see and perceive every single action that you take, every single step that you take every day. But don't the scripture say that the Most High God, that his eyes are 10,000 times brighter than the sun? Right? Paraphrasing. Let me get this in the book of Sirach right quick. 23 and 19. It says, the book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 23 and verse 19. Such a man only feareth the eyes of men, and knoweth not that the eyes of the Lord are 10,000 times brighter than the sun. Now you really got to think about this parable, right? Let me get this real quick. How many lumens is the sun, right? It says, now if you don't know, a lumen is, I believe it's the scientific, what is it? This, like the scientific a way that they measure light. Let's actually get the definition of a lumen really quick. Let's see. Definition of lumen, right? Lumen, the SI unit of luminous flux, equal to the amount of light emitted per second in a unit solid angle of one steradian from a uniform source of one candela. So a lumen in basic terms is a measurement of how much light is emitted per second. All right. I'm not really sure what let's see what this going to this really quick. steradian. I've never even heard of it. A unit of solid angle equal to the angle at the center of the sphere, subtended by the part of the surface equal in area to the square of the radius. Okay, so a spheroidea, basically, when you have a sphere, what it's saying is that the angle of light that refracts or is emitted from that sphere, whenever you're looking at it, you may be looking at the sphere may be here, you may be looking at it up here. So there's an angle in relation between you and the sphere, right? A sphere being, you know, a circle, right? A 360-degree a circle, right? So when you get into the lumen is the emission of the amount of light that's being emitted per second. You know, like strobe lights and different things, they're measured in lumens. Now, while we go into this, right, peep this. Notice that the precept says that the Most High God's eyes are 10,000 times brighter than the sun. Now, we're going into this because this is a very powerful similitude to show you that nothing that you do is in the dark. The Most High God and the angels are actually recording every single thing you do. Right now, while I'm on this live, right now, while you watching this live, there's angels, innumerable amount of angels that are recording things, right? That have to give an account to Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai. That's their job, to give that account. So in the day of judgment, everything can be weighed in the balance because there was a proper account in righteousness, you know, transcribed down through the spirit with the angels, right? So back to this lumens. The sun outputs approximately 3.57 times 10 to the 28th power lumens. That's 335.7 octillion lumens in total. Though this number is distributed across space on Earth's surface, the intensity of direct sunlight can reach about 127,000 lumens per square meter. Now, mind you, it's the precepts as a similitude say, let's get this back in Sirach 23:19. Such a man only feareth the eyes of men. Now man's eyes, they can't see far. Right? A man can barely sometimes see what's in the damn room around him. A man can't always perceive the things that are even right in front of him. You know, a man can't see through walls. You know, a man can't damn see. Now, we know that there's some technology now that allow men to see through walls and things of that nature. But I'm talking about the natural eyes are very limited. You know, even if you have so-called 20/20 vision, your eyes are limited to what they can actually see. And, you know, they say, what is that earthly proverb? Believe half of what you see, not half of what you hear, half of what you see, something like that, right? So it's going into man's eyes can't even perceive that many things, right? And knoweth not that the eyes of the Lord Yahweh are 10,000 times brighter than the sun. So when we just went into that hundreds of thousands of lumens that the sun, I think it was 127,000 lumens that the sun emits and hits to the earth, it says the Most High God's eyes. That means his capabilities are infinite. You can't even perceive 10,000 times. What is that number? Let's see this real quick. Just for simple mathematics sake, right? 127,000 times 10,000, right? Let's see this. 127,000 times 10,000 equals. What does that even equal? Look, that equals, I don't even know what number this is, to be honest. 127,000 times 10,000, you got thousands. What is this? 100,000s, 100 million. That's 1,270,000,000. That means the most, and we can't quantify the Most High God in a number, but just walk with me real quick. Like really perceive. You got to be able to perceive and break down these scriptures, and you got to be able to go into the similitudes, and you got to be able to expand upon them through the spirit, so you can try to wrap your little human mind, our little human mind frame, around what the precepts are conveying through the Muslim. So 1,270,000,000 times brighter than the sun. Think of that similitude. All right. So, bam, let's get back to it. So, the Most High God knows what you're doing. The Most High God knows when you're studying, when you're thinking about studying, when you're going off, when you're impatient, when you are not showing compassion. You know, compassion is a big thing in this truth. What spirit are you moving in? Are you moving in a spirit of sincerity? All of these things are very important when it comes to the topic of this live. Are you refreshing the saints? Right? Let's get Matthew 6 and 14. Because we was commanded by Mashiach Womalak Yahushua. Look, it says, now one way, we're going to go over a couple of different ways through the spirit that you could actually be refreshing, right, through the saints. One way is forgiveness. Showing refreshingness through forgiveness, because a lot of times brothers and sisters get so caught up in what somebody's done to you, and we're not excusing any type of trespass or transgressions, but sometimes you got to let it go. You got to forgive your brother. That doesn't mean that you forget about it, right? Because it says mark those, right? You got to take into account, and you can't be a fool. That's a part of using discernment and discretion, and knowing how to weigh things in the balance, and knowing how to know who's a friend and who's a foe. Because just because somebody is an Israelite in the truth, that doesn't automatically make them your friend. You can be friendly to them. That automatically makes them your brother or your sister. But that doesn't mean that they won't trespass against you, right? It doesn't mean that they won't offend you, right? But who hasn't offended somebody? Right? What man is there that has not slipped with the tongue, right? But it goes back into Matthew 6 and 14 says, for if ye forgive men their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if ye forgive not men their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses. So a part of refreshing the saints is having a spirit of forgiveness. Because remember, all of us have done things that are worthy to be put to death. And you don't want the Most High God moving in a spirit of non-compassion. What if Yahweh didn't have compassion towards us? What if every time you went off, the judgment was so strict and so complete and just that you was convicted every single time? If the Most High God didn't store up grace and mercy by Shema Mashiach like Yahushua, what would life really be like for an Israelite? On top of captivity, on top of turmoil, on top of your damn long days, your feet hurt because you've been at the job 20 hours, right? You know, your children vexing you. You know, you're in a broken home, a bad relationship, you got dealing with envy, with strife, all different type of things. And on top of that, if the Most High God didn't show you grace and mercy. So one key way to ask yourself, are you refreshing the saints? Is, are you forgiving your brothers and sisters? Do you have a one strike rule, right? A brother offend you once, a sister offend you once. Hey, I'm writing them off. Hey, it's over. To hell with them. What spirit are you moving in? Where do you measure your compassion at? You know? Let's get John 13. Matter of fact, let's get Sirach 28:2 first. The book Sirach or Ecclesiastes chapter 28 and verse 2. Forgive thy neighbor the hurt that he have done unto thee. So shall thy sins also be forgiven when thou prayest. Now remember this. We should be repenting daily, right? Turning from your wicked ways or the things that you've done that's contrary to the Most High God, and sincerely asking for repentance. A part of that, though, when you ask for repentance, when you repent, Salakia, and you ask for forgiveness, normally that forgiveness part that you're asking for is often done through the practice of prayer. So let's say that you committed a transgression, a sin against the Most High God, your Creator, and you're praying and you're asking for forgiveness. But the Most High God ain't hearing your prayers. He's literally casting a deaf ear, turning a deaf ear through your prayers. It doesn't say in the book of Revelations that the prayers of the saints have come up as a memorial before the Most High God, right? What if your prayers got blocked? Let me get this really quick. Let me get this Revelations 8. Bam. It says the book of Revelations, chapter 8. Let's look at chapter 5, verse 8. And I'm going to get it in the AMP. And when he had taken the scroll, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb. That's Yahweh Shai. Each one holding a harp of golden, a harp slakia, in golden bowls full of fragrant incense, which are the prayers of the saints, God's people. So your prayers on the right-hand side are actually a sweet savor. When you go into that golden bowl full of incense, right? When you look at the temple in the ancient days, you had certain vessels that were created for the service of the Most High God through the Levites, through the Levitical priesthood. Because mind you, every Levite wasn't a priest. You had some Levites that were porters, right? One second. In different offices of the Levites. I want to get this real quick. First Chronicles, right? So as you see, you had First Chronicles 9 and 26. It says, I'm gonna start read up with 23. So they and their children had oversight of the gates of the house of the Lord. Matter of fact, I need to read up. This whole chapter is good. Let me read up real quick. I'm gonna start with 22. It says, actually, I'm gonna read up a little bit more. I'm gonna start with 18. This is Second Chronicles chapter 9 and verse 18. Who hitherto waited in the king's gate eastward? There were porters in the companies of the children of Levi. So all of the Levites weren't priests. You had certain Levites that had certain tasks and duties that they had to accomplish in order. Even when we look in Luke, the first chapter, when it talked about Zacharias, right? John the Baptist's father, it said that he was of the course of Abia. So you had different courses, you had different responsibilities and duties. And when it goes back to Revelations, the 5th chapter, when we're going into the prayers of the saints and the golden bowls, you got to realize that in the ancient days, even in the temple, when Solomon created Bashem Yahushai, when he built the temple, he also had to set apart certain vessels, right? You have vessels that were used in the service of the sacrifices. Certain vessels were used to, I believe, to capture the blood of the sacrifices. Certain vessels were used to carry water. You had the golden, I think you said laver, right? So you had certain vessels that were used in the service of Hamashiach Wamalak Yahushua. So even getting back to the Levites, as you see, it says, verse 21, and Zechariah, the son of Meshelemiah, was porter of the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. All these which were chosen to be porters in the gates were 212. These were reckoned by their genealogy in their villages, whom David and Samuel the seer did ordain in their set office. So there were certain offices that even the Levites had, right? It says, verse 26, for these Levites, the 4 chief porters were in their set office and were over the chambers and treasuries of the house of Yahweh, right? And Pete. And they lodged round about the house of Yahweh, because the charge was upon them. The charge is the commandment, their duty. And the opening thereof every morning pertained to them. So every morning these Levites had a duty to go in order to be in that position. They were set up to open the doors of the chambers of the house of the Most High, right, of the temple. And here's the point. And certain of them had the charge of ministering vessels, that they should bring them in and out by tale, right? Some of them were appointed to oversee the vessels and all the instruments of the sanctuary, and the fine flour and the wine and the oil and the frankincense and the spices. Now let's go into this vessel real quick, right? So when you go into this vessel, it says an article, utensil, a vessel, right? Armor bearer, artillery, bag, carriage, furniture. So it's in vessel, something prepared, an apparatus. All right. I think this is in the Hebrew. What's the word in the Hebrew? Keli, which means vessel. Now, why this is so important, when we go back into this Revelations, second right here, this Revelations 5 and 8, right? And when he had taken the scrolls, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb of Mashiach Yahushua, each one holding a harp and a golden bowl. This is a vessel, right? Because it's a similitude, just how when David, right? And this is real quick, when King David received the instructions of how to build the temple, these instructions were received by King David and were passed down to Solomon. All right. And we see that also in First Chronicles in the 22nd chapter. And I want to get this in a different translation right here. First Chronicles 22. It says, then David said, this from the top, this is the house of the Lord God, Yahweh, and this is the altar of burnt offerings for Israel. So David gave orders to gather the foreigners who were in the land of Israel, and he assigned stone cutters to hew out stones and build the house of God. David prepared large quantities of iron to make nails for the doors of the gates, for the clamps, trusses. There was a lot of preparation that King David had through the Spirit and power of Yahweh to put into place to be able to accomplish this monumental, historical, and very divine task of building a house unto the Most High God, Yahweh, right? So King David had to make ready and prepare these things so that the next generation, his son from the fruit of his loins, Solomon, could actually take the undertaking. Now, the thing about it, right? I want to show y'all something real quick. Let me see if I can find it. Bear with me. Bam. Verse 7. Verse 6. Then he called for Solomon his son and ordered him to build a house for Yahweh, the God of Israel. David said to Solomon, my son, I had intended to build a house for the name, presence of Yahweh, my God. But the word of the Lord came to me, saying, ye have shed much blood and have waged great war. See, David was a mighty man. He was a killer, right? Ye shall not build a house for my name, because ye have shed Salakia, so much blood on the earth before me. Behold, a son will be born to you, who will be a man of peace. See, through the Spirit before you, and this goes back to Jeremiah, right? When the Most High God said, before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee and ordained thee to be a prophet unto the nations. You got to understand that the Most High God in the third heaven, when he created Bashem Yahushai, right? Through Yahushai, when he gave Yahushai that commandment to create the innumerable amounts of angels and heavenly hosts and the spirits and the souls, the Most High God imparted certain personalities and characteristics to you before you ever inhabited the body that you're in right now, right? And even across your multiple lifetimes through regeneration, if you got eyes to hear, eyes to see and ears to hear, the Most High God had already preordained and predestinated what your walk was going to be like, right? And I'm tying this back. When you go back to this Revelations 5 and 8, and when it's getting into the golden bowls, right, it's showing you why I went to the temple, is that it's a similitude how the Most High God had ordained things on the earth for the service of the Most High God through the Levites and through building up the temple. It's mimicked the blueprint that the Most High God has in the third heaven. You got the angels who receive the fragrance and the sacrifices of incense, the fragrance, but in the form of the prayers of the saints of God, right? So you don't want to be caught up where the Most High God is not hearing your prayers and is effectually turning his ears from your prayers, right? Because you're not forgiving your neighbor. You're not refreshing, having bowels of mercy to your neighbor. And now the Most High God is not hearing your prayers. These are the things that we want to be, as they say, aware and cognizant of, because if not, really, what are you doing for the nation? What are you really doing to ensure that your brother or sister makes the kingdom just as much as you want to? It's not all about being it's not about selfishness in this truth. Now, there are certain times where you have to, obviously, you got to work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. But a part of working out your own salvation is edifying the nation. It's helping building other brothers and sisters up. It's teaching your children. If you're a wife, you should be being shamefaced, submissive. You should be teaching the children at home. And you should be setting your house, Hashem Yahushua, underneath your husband in order. Hey, husbands, you should love your wife like you love yourself, right? You should be studying. You should be fasting. You should be praying, right? You should be, every day you should be examining yourself, right? Leaders in the body, what examples are you setting? Hey, members, everybody in the body has a leadership position, believe it or not. Far beyond the title. What are you doing in this truth to refresh the saints? Right, moving on. The second thing we're going to touch on, I'm going to get the book of John, chapter 13. I think I want to start with verse 34 through 36. The second thing we're going to touch on is brotherly and sisterly love. We such a hurt and damaged people. Sometimes, man, it literally brings tears to my eyes just to think of, how far we have really, how far we fall in the error. And it's a bittersweet thing, because we know that with the fall is going to come us being, Lord willing, we in that number, exalted again, exalted to a position that we've never been before. When you reflect on the kingdom, I was reading Second Esdras just with my daughter. A brother has sent a precept, and it really put something on my spirit, because it's like, when you think about the kingdom, and when we think about how we want to make the kingdom, but we never, I personally don't really spend that much time reflecting on what does that mean? And am I really serious about making a kingdom? And what I mean by that is, I can say that I'm serious about making a kingdom, but how much effort am I consciously putting every day, every moment, to store up my riches in heaven? It's kind of like, if you think about, I kind of look at it as like a prepaid debit card, right? A prepaid debit card, you can't spend what's not already on there. Think about that. Now, a regular debit card, you can overdraft your account. I do it all the time, right? So, what I mean? It's like, but a prepaid debit card, you can't do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, if it's not already put on there, if you haven't loaded up your balance, you don't have anything to spend. So when we think about the kingdom, how much have we loaded up in our prepaid balance so that when a time comes that the price is due, we can have a balance to be debited from? And that's what I mean in terms of thinking when I was going through that precept with my daughter and just thinking about how it stated literally that it was Ezra saw an innumerable amount of people that he couldn't even count. And when he asked through the spirit who it was, you know, the angel revealed to him that these are the saints who have put off their mortal body and put on immortality by exalting the name of Yahweh. And that just doesn't mean you just saying Yahweh, Yahweh, Yahweh. You're exalting them through your actions, through your trust, through your belief, through your works, through your faith, right? And a part of that faith is showing brotherly and sisterly love to the children of God, you know? And this goes hand in hand with forgiveness, all right? This goes hand in hand with giving alms. This goes hand in hand with being patient, right? It goes hand in hand also with rebuking your neighbor as well. Because brotherly and sisterly love doesn't mean just be a yes man or woman, right? It's time out for that. Brotherly and sisterly love also goes into accountability. Or not only are you accountable, are you an accountable brew, but also do you hold others to a standard of accountability? Think about that. And that too can go into pride. You know, are you so prideful in your mind that you really don't give a damn about your other brother or sister going off? Like we read in the book of Ecclesiastes, there's a time and there's a place for everything, right? There is literally a time to show compassion. There's a time to make your forehead hard towards your brothers and sisters. But you gotta move in the spirit of love. It has to be rooted in love, you know? And I had to learn that too, because honestly, when I first came into this truth and I was out on the highways and the byways teaching, my mentality, I think I wanted to just go out there and just cut brothers and sisters up. It wasn't rooted out of sincerity and sincere love. That's something that through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahshai had to begin to develop over time. And I still, if I'm honest with myself, I have to catch myself sometimes. I can. Like, damn, are you out here for brotherly and sisterly love, or are you out here to just shake the hand? You know, you want to be able to examine yourself and ask the Most High God to give you righteous intentions. And that goes back to your mind frame. Like, what frame of mind are you doing things in? Are you doing it for vainglory? Are you doing it just so you could go through the motions? Are you doing it just so you can get a name in Israel? You got to watch that spirit. Now, we understand that the precepts teach us that a good name is a treasure and to be valued, right? More than silver and gold. Well, you got to keep that in context. Is that your whole goal? Is to just get a good name for the sake of looking a certain type of way or having a certain authority over brothers and sisters with no sincerity? Or do you want a good righteous name so you can stand before Yahweh Shem Yahshai in that day of visitation and he can say, well done, my good and faithful servant? Everything is about what spirit are you moving in. So how are you showing brotherly love and sisterly love? How are you refreshing, right, your brother and sister by showing love? You know, depending on how you're showing love can very well save somebody's life. Just going that extra mile, especially when you don't feel like it. You know, we all do different things at different levels. You know, some people are more patient, Some people are more stern, and some people show their love in more of an affectionate type of way. Right? Everybody has a different spirit for the most part, imparted on them and measured depending on how they show certain things. Right? Let's get to it. So, I'm in St. John chapter 13, verse 34, and it reads, "A new commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another, as I have loved you, that ye also love one another. By this shall all men know that ye are my disciples, if ye have love one to another." Now think about this. When we think about being a disciple of Hamashiach, woman like Yahushua, are we really thinking about love is a prerequisite, is a tenet, is a requirement in order to be a disciple of Yahushua? Not just loving yourself. For most people, it's easy to love themselves. But can you love your brother or sister like you love yourself? Really think about that. That means that the things that you don't want someone to do to you, you got to be in the spirit to not do that to your brothers and sisters. Love is also about being understanding. You know what I mean? Like, I was having a conversation with one of my business partners today about, being able to read the room. Because sometimes, you might have a certain situation or scenario where somebody might be lashing out, or somebody might not know how to express themselves or what they're going through. And oftentimes you have to be able to read the room and have that spirit of discernment to know, like, okay, I'm looking at such and such body language, or looking at patterns that happen over time. And you might notice, well, okay, man, I think the brother might be going through something. Brother kind of in the corner. Brother normally is the one who was kind of upbeat, right? But you look over and brother kind of down. Yeah, just gonna let that brother be. Brother look like he in a bad mood. Sometimes that's not. I'm not saying all the time. Sometimes it's not wise, right? You always hear stories where people are like such and such, damn crashed out. As the younger generation would say, hey, so and so crashed out, and everybody like, damn, I didn't even know they was going through that. Or such and such, Lord forbid, killed himself. I didn't know they was going through that. Well, damn, if you really paid attention, you might have noticed the changes in attitudes. Them are all spirits. So back to brotherly and sisterly love, and loving one another as you love yourself, that goes into even checking on brothers and sisters. Sometimes it's just that simple call, And something doesn't have to always be apparently wrong for you to check on a brother, for you to check on a sister. It don't got to be a 30-minute conversation all the time either. It could be, hey, Shalom, call y'all about Shah. No, I was thinking about you. How you doing? How your day doing? I had multiple brothers call me before in the body, like, hey, it's just wellness check. And it feels good. It's a refreshing thing when you know that people care about you in sincerity, and that people are rooting for you through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahushua. Think of how good that feels to know that you love. Take a minute to think about that. Now think of how good that feeling that you feel when you know someone loves and cares about you according to righteousness. Now think about making your brother or sister feel that way just by checking on them. Especially oftentimes if you went through some type of quarrel with them, right? Y'all might not have seen eye to eye. Y'all might have to have words. And call that brother, that sister, and check on them. Refresh them through the spirit. Reiterate. Let's get this word real quick. get this word real quick. Reiterate. Reiteration. I think it's called. Look, the action of repeating something, typically for emphasis or clarity. Reiterate your love for them. Reiterate your sincerity for your brother and sister. Reiterate your compassion through your actions. Reiteration is profitable in this truth. In the world, we reiterate anger, strife, quarrels, disappointment, frustration, anxieties, mishaps, hatred, right? All type of things. We reiterate. We amplify it. I'm gonna let such and such know. I don't fuck with them like that. So like you for the language. I'm gonna let them know. But we not in the world no more, y'all. When you think about, let me get this quick precept real quick. When you think about vows, and then I'm gonna come back to this John because it's something that I want to address in this John. But when you get in terms of, when you think about bowels of mercy, we get this Colossians 3 and 12, and I want it in there. I really want it in the NIV. All right, bam. It's the NIV right here. So keep this. Colossians 3 and 12. New International Version. Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy, set apart, and dearly loved. Dearly loved by who? By the Most High, and we should be dearly loved by one another. Clothe yourselves with compassion. Think about that. Clothe. What does clothing do? It covers you. It protects you from the elements, right? It covers up your secret parts. You should be clothed with compassion. That means compassion should compass you about, right? People see your garments over your skin. So your garments are actually, in a proverbial sense, an extension of your body. So you want to wear compassion as a garment. You got to think, garments can be put on, garments can be taken off, right? Kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience, right? These are the things that we want to embody. That's the word I'm looking for. We want to embody these attributes, right? Let me get something else real quick, right? We want to embody these attributes. Bear with me. Bear with me. I want to get this specific phraseology. 1 second. Bear with me. Bear with me. Maybe it's in that verse in KJV. All right, bam. Salaki, it's in the KJV that says what I'm looking for. Salaki. Salaki. Bear with me. Share my screen. Bam. Colossians 3 and 12. Put on therefore as the elect of Yahweh, holy and beloved, bowels of mercy, kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness, long suffering. So when you think about bowels, right? Normally when you think about bowels, you might think about, going to the bathroom, just playing up and down, right? Straight up and down. But when you think about bowels, notice your bowels are your innermost part. Okay? Matter of fact, without your bowels, you would die. Because your bowels have certain functionality to remove waste from your body, right? Your bowels are a vital organ. Yeah, vital organs. You got your digestive system encompassing the small and large intestines, your rectum, so forth and so on. which work together to process food, absorb nutrients, and eliminate waste from the body. Good bowel health is supported by sufficient fiber and water intake, regular exercise, and healthy bowel habits. While changes or symptoms like chronic diarrhea or blood and stool may indicate a medical issue like inflammatory bowel disease. So your bowels are a vital part of your health, right? And of maintaining a healthy balance within your body. Now, when you think about this Colossians, when it says that we put on bowels of mercies, that's telling you that you're in it's a similitude for your most internal self. Your inward parts should be merciful, should be full of mercy. That should be something that you lead with, right? It should be a part of you, a part of your operations, a part of your, your mindset to have mercy, to be merciful, right? Now let's get back to this John 13 and 34. The reason why I wanted to come back here about bowels of mercy goes back to loving one another. But peep this. A new commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another. Now, is this really a new commandment? And this is where a lot of so-called Christians get tripped up at, right? If we go and hear a new, look what it's saying. A fresh, right? Kanos in the Greek, a new or fresh, especially in freshness. Why neos is properly so with respect to age or new, like a new age, right? So with Yahweh Shai, he's not teaching a new commandment in a sense that this has never been taught before. He's saying he's refreshing your understanding. He's reminding you, hey, look, you gotta love your neighbor like you love yourself. Very important to think about. Brotherly and sisterly love. Let's go to Romans 12 and 10. Romans 12 and 10. Be kindly affectioned one to another with brotherly love and honor, preferring one another. When you think about preferring, that's the root word of like preference. Our preference should be one another. This goes back into even like, not to get carnal, but even on a monetary level and even on a societal business level, Jake don't prefer one another, right? I want to get this real quick. I heard this before in a business meeting and it blew my mind. What is the amount of time that the dollar stays in circulation in the black community, right? The widely cited figure that the dollar stays in circulation for only 6 hours in the black community, it says, is considered an exaggeration and a myth by many economists and fact checkers. Although the general idea that dollars circulate much less in black communities than others is supported by evidence, with one source citing a University of Georgia Selig Center study indicates a dollar circulates only once in the black community compared to more in others. So even if the 6 hour figure is a myth, right? We don't prefer one another as a nation right now. Even on an economic level, the other nations prefer to keep their resources, their support, their consideration as much in their community as to their control. So even when we go into our monetary and our economic system, it all goes back to a mind frame. Because if you supporting your brother or sister in their endeavors, they can in turn support their family. They can, Lord willing, in turn pass it forward, pay it forward. and give more alms, have more resources in righteousness, especially us of the household of faith. Us who are striving for righteousness by Shema Mashiach Wamalak Yahushai, we should definitely be doing all we can do to prefer one another. Mentally, physically, right? Economically, emotionally, all of the above. This is how you, and when it goes into refreshing the saints, ultimately it goes into helping build a nation so strong that when Hamashiach Wamalak Yahushai does come back, that hopeful elect that's been sealed, it's been prepped, and you've actively been a part of being used on the right-hand side to strengthen our nation and to help prepare brothers and sisters, Lord willing, to be a part of that number, right? And that all goes back to that's a heavy responsibility, man. Straight up and down, that's a heavy responsibility. That's not something that needs to be taken lightly. And, you know, and we're thankful. We're thankful that the Most High God has entrusted us with this responsibility. Let's get 1 Peter 1:22. That's 1 Peter 1:22. Seeing ye have purified your souls in obeying the truth through the Spirit unto unfeigned love of the brethren. See that ye love one another with a pure heart fervently. And your love shouldn't just be only so you can make it. Think about that. Where's the sincerity in it? Like, you know what? I'm gonna love you only because I'm commanded to. I got a problem with that. I'm led to believe the Most High got a problem with that too. I'm led to believe. I don't sit in the seat of Yahweh, but I'm led to believe that's an issue. You only love your brother or your sister because you commanded to. That's not really. I'm led to believe that's not really too. That's not sincere. I'm gonna go ahead and say it, because it's like, because I'm commanded to, I'm going to love you. But if I wasn't commanded to, I wouldn't love you. Hey, brothers and sisters get what I'm saying, right? Let's get Sirach 6:17. It was that 1 Peter. Saying ye have purified your souls in obeying the truth with the spirit of unfeigned love of the brethren. See that ye love one another with a pure heart fervent. All right. Now let's get that Sirach 6:17. Sirach 6:17. Whoso feareth the Lord shall direct his friendship aright, for as he is, so shall his neighbor be also. Now, mind you, in refreshing the saints, you being a mighty example goes a long way in this truth. Got to think our community, our nation, historically has suffered because we have had, poor leadership. We have followed leaders who don't have our best interests at hand. Leaders pushing doctrines that aren't biblical, that have us into all type of idolatry. Salakia, setting us up for failure. Ulterior motives they have, where they say they for us, but then they lead us down the path of destruction. You're scattering the sheep. So a big part of showing that love is being a righteous example, because leadership is not something that should be taken lightly. And when I say leadership, I don't necessarily mean that you have to be the head of a camp or organization. Hey, if you have a home, you're a leader. You should be a leader in your household, right? You should be a leader everywhere you go. You should have in your mind frame that you're God's holy people, right? And that you're a light that should be shining in dark places. Even when you're around the other nations should look at you like, damn, man, that damn nigga right there, yeah, he worship Yahweh Shem Shai. Even if they don't agree, even if they can't understand it, because you know they can't wrap their mind around righteous servitude. But these are things that we gotta really reflect on more, and we gotta stand on these things. You know, right? Motivating one another. Another great way to refresh the saints is through motivation. Everybody needs motivation. You know, even in terms of let's get this real quick. Pep talk. Get the definition. A talk intended to make someone feel more courageous or enthusiastic. A pep talk. You know, in school, matter of fact, they used to have pep rallies, right? A pep rally is a school organized event designed to build enthusiasm, school spirit, and unity, typically before a sporting event, but also for other significant school occasions, right? So if even in the world, they have pep rallies, they have pep talks, you know, nowadays you got motivational speakers. Like these some of your top so-called motivational speakers, right? You got Les Brown, Tony Robbins, Eric Thomas. You know, look, it's pages of pages look, they got Mr. T on here of motivational speakers. And I believe most of these motivational speakers are damn so-called millionaires, right? Let me see. Let's get a couple. Let me do this. Top motivational speakers net worth 2025. Look, as of 2025, speakers like Tony Robbins has estimated net worth of $600 million. A for damn motivational speaker, he done gained a net worth of $600 million. While others like Simon Sinek are estimated to be at $21.2 million, having built their wealth through books, speaking engagements, and consulting. So you got to think, if these motivational speakers, according to the world, who are speaking all type of just rudimentary knowledge, right? Just base knowledge and motivation. A lot of these motivational speakers, they really, how do I say this? No disrespect. They really hustlers. They really sell you some damn book club, or, you know, they remind me of pastors, a lot of them. Now they go to church, they get all amped up and they get you all, then they hit you with a damn offering plate, right? That's how a lot of these motivational speakers are. They get you amped up, then they hit you to buy their book. And now they got a damn New York bestseller. But if these speakers, according to the world, can motivate masses of people for monetary gain, how much more us being in the truth, right, should be motivating one another, all right, refreshing one another, giving those I'm gonna get this Hebrews 10 and 24, giving those so-called pep talks, right? Let's go Hebrews. Dang, I'm just spelling it all wrong. My typing, y'all, I gotta bear with me. I ain't Mavis Beacon. Damn. Hebrews 10 and 24. And let us consider one another to, man, I need some tissue. And let us consider one another to provoke unto love and to good works. Now, provoking, we normally hear that in a sense of something negative, like a negative connotation, like don't provoke me to anger. Well, we should be provoking one another to righteousness. That provoking goes into encouraging. Let's get this real quick. Provoke. stimulation. When you stimulate something, you effectually still synonym for stimulation. It's almost like I want to use the word entice. Let me get a good what was it, the source at real quick. Let's get a good stimulation, encouragement of something to make it develop or become more active. So by stimulating, you're encouraging, you're provoking someone to become more active in his truth, in context. So that's encouragement, right? That can come through. And this goes back to what we talked about earlier of being able to, reach out to a brother and sister and let them know, hey, that you care about them. Hey, check on a brother and sister and encourage them. Oftentimes, now you can do a blanket prayer, but if you know exactly what that brother or that sister is going through, how much more lethal will your prayer life be if you can pray for them to overcome that exact demon that they're dealing with? But how are you going to know that if you're not taking the time to embrace and to compassionately care for your brother and sister, to encourage them? Like I said, encouragement can go a very, very long way. So it can go a very, very long way, it takes it takes sincerity to encourage somebody as well too, because when you think about a pep rally or a pep talk, the intentions of that talk is to change somebody's attitude. It's to give somebody it's really to prepare somebody to accomplish some goal or success. When you think about a pep rally before a sports outing or a school sports, it's literally to have the intention to amp the players, to amp the fans up into a certain state of being of mind, of euphoria, so therefore that one could perform at a level that's going to enable them to obtain the victory. Now take that and apply that to this truth. We definitely want the victory. So you got to be able to encourage, and it's a skill set too. Being able to, because everybody's not always, how do I say this? Everybody's not always in a mind frame to want to uplift somebody else. Sometimes you might want to do it more, but you might not have what you consider the skill set to do it. You might say, well, you know what? I'm kind of not like a people person, or I'm more of a reserved personality. Well, hey, you got to do it anyway. You got to find your voice, and you got to find, Bashem Yahushai, the spirit to encourage somebody. And everybody doesn't do it the same. It could be a simple text message. It could be a phone call. It could be a damn email. You know what I'm saying? I know some brothers and sisters that'll write a cold email. So you got to find your way sincerely to be able to encourage your next Israelite brother or sister. It's a requirement, yo. It's not optional. Stop thinking that refreshing the saints, or stop thinking that these things are optional. They're not optional. All these things that are written are for our learning. Aforetime are for our learning. So it's not optional. It's not a damn multiple choice where you say, okay, I'm gonna choose this one, but I'm gonna cross this one out. All right, that one sounds good to me. You got to get out of your comfort zone too. A lot of times when you're stuck in your comfort zone, it's one or two things. A lot of times. I'm saying every case is like this, but a lot of times you stuck in your comfort zone, I'll say one of three things, right? You scared, you damn lazy, or you prideful. A lot of times it's gonna fall in one of those three categories. You're either fearful, You're afraid of change. You're afraid to take the next step. You don't have faith, right? You're damn lazy. You're not fearful to take the next step, but you're lazy. You don't want to put in the work. So you stay in the same place. And that causes you to make excuses. I know, because I've been in all three places and sometimes all three at once. Fear sets in, damn slothfulness sets in, and pride. Because that pride goes into, you think that you think you the shit. Salakia for the language, straight up and down. That's that pride spirit. You think that you can't improve upon the things that you need to improve upon, you know? And you don't want to be moving in that spirit. Hey, Aquaf, you don't want to be moving in that spirit. You want to be able to get out of your comfort zone, and you want to be able to encourage the next brother and sister, and Lord willing, get them out of their comfort zone. Because if everybody stays in what they're comfortable in, where the hell will we go as a nation? Because at one point in time, each one of us was comfortable and wicked. I used to literally be comfortable getting high all damn day. Roll up, I smoking back to back to back, and I was comfortable in that lifestyle. Now I don't. The Most High had to bring me out of Bashimi Abashai to get me out of my comfort zone, because you can't get to where you need to go in your damn comfort zone. You in your own way. So you got to get out your comfort zone, your so-called comfort zone, in order to encourage the next brother and sister. And if you don't, you know, if that's something that's a challenge to you, that's something you can add to your prayer list. You know how bucket list, that's the word I'm looking for. Look at this real quick. Now people have a so-called bucket list. Look, the ultimate bucket list, right? Buy a house, climb Kilimanjaro. I think that's like one of the largest mountains in Africa or something like that, right? Yeah, one of the largest mountains in Africa. Look, float in the Dead Sea, run a marathon, write a book, dye your hair, go to college, go parasailing, celebrate Holi in India. That's off. Damn wicked Elamite holiday. Achieve my goal weight. Go horseback riding, skydive, Inca Trail to Machu Picchu. These is people's so-called bucket list, right? What's your prayer bucket list? What's your truth bucket list? What is your bucket list in the truth? The top of your bucket list should be make the kingdom by Shimi Awashai. But also on your bucket list, are you trying to increase in faith? Are you trying to be more diligent, more compassionate? And maybe it's to just check on brothers and sisters more often. And we got to start taking things that we did in the world, and you don't want to. It should never be equal in the truth. It shouldn't be like, okay, I did this in the world, so now I made a bucket list in the world as an example, but now in the truth, I'm gonna make a bucket list too. No, it should be did this in the world. Now in the truth, I want to do it, but I want to do it at a higher level than I did it in the world. Because when I did it in the world, it was for vanity. It was for shits and giggles. It didn't mean nothing. It wasn't salvational. Salvation is on the line every day. It's kind of like one of my favorite movies, Paid in Full. He said, hey, niggas get shot every day, B. Hey, brothers fall out the truth every day. Sisters fall out the truth every day. Is it gonna be you? Is it gonna be you today? Ask yourself that question. Is it gonna be you today? Is it gonna be me today? Is it gonna be you tomorrow? These are things that we gotta keep in the forefront of our mind that are possible. And you gotta do all you can do. You gotta damn fight tooth and nail, right? in order to stay in this thing, 10 toes down, right? You should have expectations in this truth. And that's why I went to this bucket list. A bucket list is really like, these are the top things that I want to accomplish. And normally they put them in a so-called order, right? There's a hierarchy even on a bucket list. What's on your bucket list? Make you a list of ways that you're going to go about in order to refresh the saints. Make you a list. And a damn wicked, what's the dude name? Santa Claus, what they say? He making a list, he checking it twice. Where's your list? Right? Get that damn Santa Claus spirit off, right? Salakia, let's move on, y'all. Let's move on. Bear with me. Let me share my other screen. Bear with me. Bashem Yahushai, the water. All praise to the Most High. Bear with me. Bam. All right, let's get this. I want to get this Sirach 37 and 12, matter of fact. Because when we go into the motivation, it says Sirach 37 and 12, and this is what goes into the company you keep. You know, you want to be able to abstain from groups of people or relationships, right? And when I say relationship, I'm not talking about necessarily romantic relationship. No, I mean like relationships in terms of friendships, right? Whether you're courting or not, you know, marriages, you know, any form of relationship, right? Especially to the children. You are at school around so many different people, so many different spirits. You gotta form healthy relationships. Now, you don't want to be unequally yoked with unbelievers. I tell my children this all the time, right? Like, we live in the damn suburbs where it's a lot of heathen. And my children interact with heathen every single day. It's inevitable. So I try to, at first, I was in the spirit of like isolation, but I saw it wasn't profitable to the standpoint, because they got to be around these people at school. They got to be around these people in sports and so forth and so on. So I changed my parenting approach by Shem Yahushai to try to use more discernment and wisdom to be like, okay, if we're living in these communities, we're in America, I need to teach you on not compromising who you are. I need to teach you, Lord willing, on not following the ways of the heathen. I need to teach you on how to separate yourself even when you're around these people. And that's a very tricky thing sometimes, you know? And I'm still adjusting, because these heathens damn vex my spirit. But I understand, I'm beginning to understand that it's the balance to things, right? And you're not going to get it right all the time. You're not going to get it right all the time. What, Salakia? Because the Most High, I'm not limiting the power of the Most High. The Most High can make you get it right every time, right? Sirach 37 and 12. But be continually with the godly man, whom thou knowest to keep the commandments of Yahweh, whose mindset is according to thy mind. Once again, don't be unequally yoked with unbelievers. Because if we don't have this same foundation in the precepts, my mind is not going to be like your mind. Your mind is not going to be like my mind. So another way, Salaki, in terms of encouraging, is through your walk. If you got a strong brother or sister in the truth, and you're increasing and waxing mightier, I'm led to believe through the Spirit, brothers and sisters are going to be more apt to want to be around you, right? Because You can help build them up. You can help pour into them. You know, nobody wants to be around that person who's just damn wicked, right? Or even in terms of people who are always, I hate when I go around people and they just so damn negative all the time. They just, like, for me personally, man, that stuff be draining sometimes. So imagine you negative and you wicked. So you want to be refreshing and help refresh brothers and sisters by being that example. Help have that righteous expectation. Set that bar. Let's get this real quick. Set the bar, right? To set the bar high is an idiom meaning to establish a very high standard or expectation for quality, competence, or achievement, making it difficult to meet, but also encouraging greater effort and potential for growth. The bar is a metaphor for a hurdle in a high jump competition. A higher bar is harder to clear, signifying a more challenging goal. So you should be setting the bar high to encourage others to perform at that level when it's true, right? I know I get encouraged all the time, man. I see brothers and I get encouraged by brothers. I get encouraged by sisters, right? Israelites who are moving through the spirit and power. And I think that the more that we can set greater examples in our communities, the more that we can begin to achieve these high standards and high statuses of setting that bar high, right? Moving on. Fasting for one another. I'm gonna wrap up here. Probably gonna do a part 2 on this as well. Let's get Joel 2, and I want verse 15 and 16. Book of Joel, chapter 2, verse 15 and 16. Blow the trumpet in Zion, sanctify a fast, call a solemn assembly. Gather the people, sanctify the congregation, assemble the elders, gather the children and those that suck the breast. Let the bridegroom go forth of his chamber and the bride out of her closet. And this is telling you to gather the nation together. Sanctify a fast. Oftentimes we may be dealing with certain strongholds, right? And we was just going into this, matter of fact, Salakia. It's not alcohol either, y'all. It's black water. Black water. We was just going through this on a midday call. I believe it might have been Monday. It might have been last week, like Wednesday or Thursday before the new moon. I think it was Wednesday or Thursday, but nevertheless, about sanctify a fast. A fast. I'm gonna get this real quick. And we're gonna bring out probably a Isaiah 50. I think I'm gonna start with 5. Right? It says, "Is it such a fast that I have chosen, a day for a man to afflict his soul?" It's going into the Day of Atonement. "Is it to bow down his head as a bulrush, and to spread sackcloth and ashes under him? Wilt thou call this a fast and an acceptable day to Yahweh?" Now, peep this. "Is not this the fast that I have chosen? To loose the bands of wickedness, to undo the heavy burdens, and to let the oppressed go free, and that ye break every yoke." So when it goes into that Joel that we were just at, right? In that Joel 2 and 15, fasting for the nation doesn't always just go into afflicting your soul by not eating. You want to be in the mind frame, right? To really focus, highlight, and concentrate is the word I'm looking for lack of a better one, on also being profitable through these righteous servitude, right? Through focusing on, it's a lot of oppressed people out here, of Israel. We are oppressed people. Mentally, there's a lot of mental health situations. lack of clothing, housing, broken families, damn drug addictions, it's so many things that is even hard to just pinpoint, a couple. It's so many. And so another part of refreshing the saints is going to go into, building one another up, right? Help clothing each other, shelter each other, feed one another. You got to think of how many homeless seem like every time I look around, it's a damn, it's a homeless Israelite. And not helping the other nations. And I'm not saying you in sin if you help another nation, but focus on our people, y'all. Focus on the other nations is focused on the other nation. It's time for us to focus on us. So when it goes into that fasting for one another, I'm not just talking about where you don't eat and you're afflicting your soul and your body. I'm also talking about this type of fasting as well, where you letting the oppressed go, where you undoing heavy burdens. And that could be such a wide category of things that could be classified as heavy burden. We under a heavy yoke of bondage. We in a country that's not ours. We under laws that are not righteous, right? There's a lot to go with that. But with that, well, actually, I want to get one more. Let me close with this Tobit 12 and 8. Let me close with this Tobit 12 and 8. It's the book of Tobit, chapter 12 and verse 8. Prayer is good with fasting and alms and righteousness. It's a trifecta. Now remember, prayer, we talked about prayer earlier, right? That if you're not showing love and brotherly love, the Most High God ain't gonna hear your prayers, right? We also talked about preferring one another. Fasting is not just afflicting your soul and not eating. There's other things that we just saw in that Isaiah 58 and 6 on down. You actually start with verse 2 on down, right? And alms and righteousness, right? So just giving alms and going back to being wicked, lightweight, I'm led to believe they cancel each other out. So even in giving your alms, you want to also be repentant and cleansing your way as well, right? A little with righteousness is better than much with unrighteousness. And this goes into people who think gain is godly. It is better to give alms than to lay up gold. So, and oftentimes too, giving alms, it doesn't always mean in the form of monetary consideration. You can refresh a brother or sister by just, going and give them your time, right? Hey, lend them your ear, give them your voice. Speak out for the oppressed, for those who can't defend themselves. Step up, right? Be courageous. Think about that. It takes courage to fight somebody else's battles. It might not be. Now, don't be simple. Somebody out, you got to weigh it in the balance. You got to use discernment. You got to pray for that. Because also the precept says, and I'm paraphrasing, let me get this quick precept. Like one who takes a dog by the ears is one who meddles in somebody else's strife. Paraphrase, right? It's Proverbs 26 and 17 says, he that passeth by and meddleth with strife belonging not to him is like one that taketh a dog by the ears, right? So you got to be able to discern situations as well, because every situation doesn't warrant you engaging and interacting directly. So you got to pray for these things. And it's another precept that comes to mind real quick. If you fail to save those who are in distress. It's in the law. 1 second. I believe it's in man, if brother or sister know that precept I'm thinking about, I'll drop it in the chat, or you can drop it in the chat. But it's even in the law, it tells us, dang it, what is that precept? I'm gonna find the precept, but basically, if you see a brother or sister that's put up, that's being oppressed or put to death, and you fail to, save them, that blood can be counted on your hands, right? So, you got to weigh it in the balance, because it's really going to depend on, things are situational is what I'm trying to say, right? But more than none, you want to be prepared to defend your brothers and your sisters, right? You definitely want to be prepared to defend your brothers and your sisters. And that's what this Tobit is going into, is that for alms does deliver from death and shall purge away all sin. Those that exercise alms and righteousness shall be filled with life, right? And I'm gonna get this Jude 1 and 3 too, because it brings me into, like, that's a part of contending for the faith. Contending for the faith doesn't always mean just bringing out precepts because somebody is trying to oppose the understanding, the true understanding of the Bible. Contending for the faith even goes into help protecting the saints and refreshing the saints. Taking care of the widows who are widows indeed, those who are in prison. And it's not, sometimes, man, put $5 on that sister's or that brother's books. You might not have the money. Send a letter, right? Be encouraging. It's so many different ways to contend for the faith. It's not always just meaning have a damn precept shootout with somebody. It's a lot to encompass, and it's true. And it's like the more that we learn, the more responsibility you have to be about it, to do it. Let me get the 2 Maccabees 6 and 31 too. I'm gonna wrap up, y'all. Lord willing. I want to get this account though. It says 2 Maccabees 6 and 31. And thus this man died, right? His death for an example of a noble courage and a memorial of virtue, not only unto young men, but unto all his nation. So, that goes into contending for the faith. You want to be that example to your whole nation. And we got many mighty examples throughout all of the precepts, all of the scriptures that should, when I talk about setting that bar high, the bar has already been set the highest it could be, because we got the mighty example of a Mashiach woman like Yahushua. But then even under Yahushua, you still got a lot of righteous examples that have still set the bar high in expectation, right? And, setting that bar high also goes into, if somebody is not meeting that standard and they keep falling short, don't the scriptures say those who are spiritual restore such a one, right? Let me get this real quick, that Galatians 6 real quick. It says, brethren, Galatians 6 and 1 through 2, if a man be overtaken in a fault, ye which are spiritual, restore such a one in the spirit of meekness, considering yourself, lest thou also be tempted. Bear ye one another's burden, and so fulfill the law of Yahushua. So we want to definitely do our best to bear one another's burden. Yahushua got up on that cross for us. That's a hell of a burden to bear. When you was perfect and you had the nation of Israel as a whole, we was wicked for the most part. I'm not saying we didn't have righteous brothers and sisters. We're talking about as a majority, right? And Yahweh Shai got up and bare our burden. He refreshed us. He quickened us. It says the spirit that quickened, the flesh profited nothing. These words that I speak, they are spirit and they are life. So with that, I want to give all glory, praises, and honor to Yahweh Bashem Mashiach, Malak Yahweh Shai. I'm going to get this last precept, Corinthians 15:58, because I admonish you, brothers and sisters, to stay steadfast. Therefore, my beloved brethren, be ye steadfast, unmovable, always abounding, which is increasing in the work of the Lord. For as much as you know that your labor is not in vain in the Lord Yahweh. Call out Yahweh Shema Mashiach, woman like Yahweh Shai. Most High willing, this Manna Mondays has been edifying. You know, all praise to the Most High God. Kwam Yashua.